Network. Welcome to NBA Jump Ball and Canada Day. Canada Day, the president of the provinces of Canada, the mayor-elect of North America, is not off. I've done wrestling. I've done NHL free agents. I'm going to do now NBA free agent. If you want to do curling, if you want to do a fireworks show, we got Fired Up Alex Campbell here. Alex, first of all, I know you're not Canadian, but happy Canada Day to you. What does that mean to you?
I appreciate that. Well, Canada actually means a lot to me. I mean, I grew up in Michigan. I mean, not far from Detroit, which of course is right across the border from Windsor. So while I'm not Canadian,
Eh,
I certainly feel like that sometimes. With the accent.
Well, I'll tell you who's not Canadian, but he's going to be rich. All right. Damian Lillard has now requested a trade from the Portland Trailblazers. And let me tell you, why couldn't he request a trade a week ago so before July 1st, everything could be worked out? No, he requested a trade on June 30th, and he only wants to, well, I shouldn't say only, but his preferred destination is the Miami Heat. Miami, all right, with Jimmy Butler there. Who knows Kyle Lowry? They got Struce somewhere else and Bam and everything like that. If you're Miami, who would you trade to get Damian Lillard?
That's the question. To me, the only viable option would be Hero, and then maybe like a depth piece and a pick, because in my opinion, they can't move out of Bio. I think you probably agree because
Yep.
they need that. They need a post presence. Those guys aren't easy to find. We saw, there were only a few teams left in the playoffs. All of them had, really good centers. Adebayo was one of them. They need him.
Of course they need him, but again, Portland, could they play hardball here or say we want to take whoever? Can they play hardball, or does he specifically told them, okay, it's the Heat or nothing else?
Yeah, I don't think they can. I really don't. Do they, because of the timeline? Because and now the fact that it's declared publicly. Look, they're going to need to. In fact, not only that, the timeline of free agency alone, being able to get rid of his contract and have that much more cap space. I mean, so that clock is ticking on multiple fronts. He's got to move quickly before a lot of things set in place. And again, it would be advantageous for all sides to get it done quickly. And every team in the league also knows this trade's been requested. So that automatically, I would think, lowers the negotiating power.
All right, so take away Miami. Where, and it's probably going to be Miami anyways, right? It's
Right.
probably going to be Miami anyways. But where would you like to see him? Where do you think the NBA, or specifically a team who wants a championship run, needs a guy like Damian Lillard? Is it just you talk about Michigan, of course, in Detroit, but it's not going to happen.
No.
Maybe New York, or where it's probably going to be Miami. But what's, like, let's say, the second destination?
Man, I would really like to see him on the Celtics. I think the Celtics could really use him, and not only that, they have the assets. I know I'm in Boston; it has nothing to do with that, but they have the assets they could give up. As I've said multiple times on the NBA show here, that I really think that there's a holy trinity to win basketball championships in the NBA, and that is to have a really good big. You got to have three stars, basically, two of them superstars, a big, a wing, and a point. And right now they have two wings. I would like to see them move one of those to get that point, and then maybe look to get a big in free agency beyond that, because Horford's getting older and older. I know that they just got some help there with Porzingis, but I think that could be another big move for them. I maybe move on from Brown and do it, because otherwise you're going to have to pay him max money. I'd like to see that for the Celtics. He's a closer. They need to get over the hump in the playoffs, and he's got a killer mentality that I just don't believe Tatum has or ever will have.
So do you give out Brown for him?
Yeah, Brown, but then I would expect something else from Portland in this deal, because Brown is so much younger, and I'm taking on somewhat of what we know is going to be an ugly contract at some point, or we can maybe not know, but we can pretty well assume is going to get ugly for us. So I would say, yeah, I would give up Brown for him, but I mean, Brown was second team All NBA, so I would, and he's young, so he's 26 or 27, so I would want something more.
All right, so that's the biggest news there. He did not get traded, but he has requested a trade. But
Right.
also, let's talk about a team who has a little bit of money now, or maybe no money at all. We're talking about the Houston Rockets. They signed Fred VanVleet to a 3-year, not 10 million, not 20 million, not 100 million, not 110 million, $130 million deal. And if that's not it, they signed the antagonist of all antagonists to what? 4 years, $80 million. All right. So they wasted, and I'm going to say waste, 210 million on two guys who are not even 6'6".
Yeah, and you can almost make sense out of a max deal for Van Vliet, yeah,
Yeah.
because he's been such an electric player. But 4 years, $80 million to a guy that the
On
Grizzlies.
Canada Day, okay, let's come on. It just Dylan Brooks were talking about Canada Day. I know Drew Ebanks celebrating him with some Molson or whatever. Canada Day. Shout out to Drew Ebanks. Yeah, yeah. But $80 million.
eighty
What?
million dollars for Brooks. Come on, they just cut him. The Grizzlies
Yeah,
just cut him.
yeah. And the guy gets cut and makes 80 million. Not
That's
bad.
that
What
that
a life is that?
that's failing upwards. That's what you call that.
No, that's failing to the penthouse. Put it that way.
Yeah,
Right.
failing right to the penthouse.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, and Westbrook staying with the Clippers on a 2 year, $8 million. That's not bad for Westbrook. $8 million, 2 years, $4 million a year. That
Not
I don't know
not
why the
bad.
Raptors don't take him.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty modest. I was concerned. You'd heard about this that Westbrook was kind of willing to come back down to earth with contract negotiations, and it makes sense because clearly he's in the twilight of his career. But it kind of like brought me a little bit of joy to see this that they did actually agree to a deal that I consider adequate for him. It's like you said, $7.8 million. There's a lot of teams that I think at that rate could use his services.
Yeah, that rate is fantastic right now.
Yeah.
Free agency hits and ding dong, Reeves from the Lakers.
Oh my
His
gosh.
contract is right there, 4 years, $56 million. Yes, he played good. In maybe 30 games. Good guy. Okay, 30
Nice
games,
guy.
40 games were, but for 40 games, $56 million contract.
I don't know. Look, if you do kind of a deeper dive on his season worth of stats, there's a guy out there whose stat line compares exactly with him, except this guy gets I think 5 more rebounds a game. This guy is Kelly Olynyk.
Lonek, yep, another Canadian.
I mean, so basically you just signed a younger version of Kelly Olynyk. And now I know they're not the same position, but production wise, to a 4 year, $60 million deal. I don't think anybody could give that deal to Kelly Olynyk even 4 years ago.
That's right.
So if that tells you where my head's at. But this is another case where LeBron likes a guy, so he gets the bag. Does anybody remember Dellavedova back in the day?
Yeah, exactly.
LeBron likes a guy, so he gets the bag.
All right, now you talk about a Mac extension, and some people deserve it. Okay, Fred VanVleet, you could make a case for. Okay, you give it, but does Ball from Charlotte deserve a max extension of 5 years, 260 smackaroos?
Yeah, could be worth up to $260 million if he earns All NBA, MVP, or Defensive Player of the Year. And he's got a chance probably at the All NBA. Look, I get that they're signaling he's a cornerstone of their franchise. I think they've rushed into this. This shows a lot of confidence in him when you get the deal done before the date comes due. But I wonder when you give this much to a ball dominant point guard, what that means for the rest of the team. I like LaMelo a lot, but to me, his exact archetype is one that's kind of least reliable long term in the NBA. So I'm interested in seeing where that goes in the future, and if the size of that contract. I mean, $260 million is a lot of money. If that hurts in the long run.
DiVincenzo goes to the Knicks for 4 years, 50 million.
Yeah.
I like him, but I don't know for 50 million.
The contracts have just been insane. They just have. DiVincenzo, I like him a lot. We talked before at the broadcast. I liked him a lot in college. I remember playing there, and I thought, he's going to be a good NBA player. And I think, like I also said before, that if he can get that 3-point percentage, he's a good 3-point shooter. He's more of a catch and shoot guy. Doesn't really, if he can hit more off the dribble and he can raise that percentage a little bit, get around the 42 to 43%. Right now he's about 39% from three. If he can get to 42, 43, he'll be a real productive player. He's only averaging 9.4 points. But again, that's a lot of money for somebody to average 9.4 points.
Yeah. That's, like I said, 50 million. Now, going back to the Blazers, they did get a job done, but they took away, or they're going to take away Dame's money to give it to Grant. 5 years, $160 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like he's good. Like don't get me wrong, he's good. He's good. But again, these maximum deals for you know I don't know. And we're talking. I just did the show with NHL. They're talking. 1 year, 2 million, 1 million. And then these guys signing 5 years, 45, or like Fred VanVleet, 45 million,
Yeah.
43 million a year. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the value of the franchises over the last 5 years has gone up, what, 180% or so? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it kind of stands to reason. There's just so much money in the NBA right now. I think, in a lot of ways, and I'll talk specifically about Jeremy Grant. I was talking about this with my son earlier. In a lot of ways, we're going to look back on this era of Curry and LeBron as like a second golden era almost. When you look at the amount of talent that's in the NBA and has been for a while. I mean, it's just become such a great entertainment product. Look at the playoffs last year. It's just there are millions upon millions of people that watch the NBA, love the NBA, and they've got the youth vote in a way that a lot of other sports don't, which is a huge advantage for the NBA. So, anyways, about Jeremy Grant specifically, Jeremy Grant's a real good player. Like you said, he's kind of a middling all-star, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if he made an all-star team, but I'm not surprised if he doesn't make an all-star team. And he's about 20 points a game or so. And he's more of like that small ball build power forward. And I don't love a long-term investment in a small ball power forward because I just I don't see that small ball stuff being viable for a long term when you look at the Nuggets and how they won, pretty much opposite of that. And the only team to actually win with small ball is the Warriors.
Okay, next one. Mavs resign Kyrie Irving, 3 year, 126 millions. So I'm going to ask you this. I'll give you 135 million, but you have to sign a point guard. Do you sign for 133 million, Fred VanVleet, or for 126 million, Kyrie Irving?
God, which poison pill?
Like honestly, like it's and all we love Fred VanVleet here, but you're telling me is he better than Kyrie Irving when Irving wants to play,
No.
but he's making more?
Yeah. Well, he's not as much of a headache. That's what it
Yeah,
is. He's not as much of a headache off the court. He's not, it's a headache in an exhausting way where it can be just
exactly.
a straight curveball that can put a bad image on your team if he says or does the wrong thing, and it's just too much. And you don't know what kind. Yeah, he just signed a contract, but like we saw this in Boston, it doesn't matter. I mean, he could request a trade here in 6 months, nobody be shocked.
Yeah, it's it's unbelievable there, and of course, they also signed Seth Curry there, so that's kudos to the Mavericks there. Nets signed Cam Johnson to a 4 year, again, $108 million.
Yeah.
Like if I asked you, and we're NBA fans, right? If I
Right.
asked the guy on the street, yeah, Cam Johnson, who? $108 million now, like
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I know who Cam Johnson is. Look, if you put me in a front office and I was negotiating with him, I'd say, Cam, listen, or his agent. I mean, 80 million on 4 years is the best we're going to do. The best we're going to do. Because to me, and and maybe with incentives just to get to that 20 mil a year.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Now let's talk. Drew's not here, so put your Captain Canada hat on, okay? You lost Fred VanVleet. You signed Jakob Pearl, 4 years, 80 million.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Believe it or not, 20 million a year. If the guy is productive as when they brought him back there, he's Fred VanVleet's friend and all that, very tight friend and all that. So I'm okay with that, considering what we're talking about, the salaries now. Schroeder, they sign for 2 years, 26 million. Another okay deal. I'm okay with that. Okay, but can Schroeder fill in the shoes of Fred VanVleet, because he's going to be arguably the starting point guard for the Raptors right now?
Yeah, he is. And so Schroeder throughout his career, and I mean, this has been a hit or miss guy. I mean,
Yep.
it seems like there are games, and I mean game to game. It's not even season to season. So it's tough to peg. I can't imagine he'll be much different. I mean, at this point, he's what, 7, 8, 9 years into his career. He's
Yeah.
pretty much the same guy he's always going to be. I don't think he's not an adequate replacement as far as offensively, the points, but I think he might be more efficient in the end, though. I really do. And I know he'll obviously be a stronger defender, I think, than VanVleet as
Yeah.
well. So you get those two bonuses. I think he'll be more efficient with the ball. Probably would say probably about the same amount of turnovers, but he's not going to put it on the floor quite as much as Van Vliet did. He's not going to do that weird dribble under the rim and throw it under the, throw it out to the perimeter every time thing that Van Vliet loved to do. Yeah, I think it's kind of a addition by subtraction. I think there was a lot of loss of efficiency for the whole offense when you had Van Vliet, dribbling 15 times a possession.
All right. Jalen McDaniels also signs on
Yeah.
with the Rap 2 years, 9 point. Again, these are efficient for me, considering what we talked about. Very efficient signings, but where does that get the Raptors? Like they still have OG, they still have Scotty Barnes, they still have Pascal. Are they planning to sign these players and then make a major trade to get one or two major stars there?
Maybe. But it kind of what it looks like to me is just kind of incremental upgrades. Like we're just incrementally improving, the roster and, filling kind of these depth roles, these depth pieces where we need, we're perceived we need. McDaniels at this point is in his mid-20s, has been in the league for a few years. Another guy you pretty much know who he is. He's got some opportunity and room to grow. Of course, his brother plays in Minnesota. But I think that right now the Raptors are maybe not in a full-on rebuild, but certainly a retool type mode, where I know that they want to hang on, to Pascal. I know that they have re-signed Pirtle, but I got to imagine that everything else, can move. Maybe not, Barnes stays, but like a lot of the other pieces probably can. So to your question, I think that's likely. That especially with re-signing Pirtle and probably trying to hold on to Siakam. If they hold on to Siakam, you got to think that they're going to try to get another superstar in there. You got to, because what are you paying? What are you paying them that much for if not?
And that's right. So we'll see what happens with the Raptors in the next few days. Now, let's quickly talk about the Lakers. They did a lot of housekeeping, like we talked about. Reeves, 4 years, $56 million. D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, $37 million. They signed Hayes, 2-year contract there. Like I don't know what you guys expect from the Lakers. They're a big team. They're, Miami wants Lillard, so they're going to be there. Boston made with Porzingis and all that. The teams who are already there just make these small little tweaks. Now, the teams, like we hear noise, a lot of noise. Atlanta's trading this guy and trading that guy and want to do this and want to do that. Can they do it, and can they upgrade sufficiently to be a top 3 or 4 in the East?
The Raptors?
No, Atlanta.
Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta. Yeah. I think they can, because they're so close already. You know what I mean? I think they can. I don't know. It's tough because I know Trae Young's their best player. To me, he might be the most valuable trade piece. I know that sounds a little crazy, but there were a lot of moments last year, and even in moments where like you would expect them to be very like camaraderie. There was in the playoffs, and we talked about this when we were watching it before. He hits a game-winning shot. The team celebrates and just ghosts him. That is a weird look. And you've heard other things about how divisive that locker room is. I don't know. I don't know if Trae Young has the maturity to
I'll take
lead
Trae
that
Young.
franchise.
I think you would take him on your team. I'll take him over Brooks.
I take Trae Young. I would take Trae Young as not the best player on the team. Trae Young.
Yeah,
I think that's where we get into trouble, is when he's the guy. I think that's a big part
much
of
like
the
the
issue.
Raptors seek him. Pascal Siakam. He can't be the number 1, but he's a solid number 2 or 3.
He's a solid number 2. And the problem with Young is that he can get way too cute when he is, like I like to call it, when he's the guy.
All right. So, is there anybody else? We went through several signings. Is there anybody else that you want to touch on that, wow, that impressed you, or I can't believe the money there, or whatever?
Well, one thing I'll say is I was not surprised, but more like kind of, okay, I confirmed, right? And that's that the Miami Heat title run paid off for so many of these undrafted free agents. We see Gabe Vincent get a deal from the Lakers as well. We talked about Max Strus earlier. He got a signing as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, this title run from Miami, it really did put a shine on some of these guys. I'm anxious to see where it goes, especially with a guy like Strus. Strus, he made a 4-year, $63 million deal. I think that's probably a little too much for Strus, but I'd be anxious to see if he can take his game to the next level.
What
Um,
about Vincent?
and Vincent as well. Yeah, Gabe Vincent. I think he's going to fit really well in LA. My question is that your solution at point guard? You know what I mean? Is that your starting point guard? I think you got to get somebody else in there in the mix that you can rotate with him. But I don't think you can dependably say, all right, 82 games a year, you're the guy at point guard. I just, he played well. He played well for Miami in that stretch, but I mean, so did Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
So I think that they do well to bolster that position, especially after losing Schroeder and everything. I think that's the route they should go in free agency.
Okay, so let's talk about the beard. Okay,
Yeah,
James Harden. Uh, we thought he's going to go to Houston, and it looks like Houston wanted to give him $130 million. Okay, because there's we have Fred VanVleet here. We have $130 million in yours. Okay, and you got to honestly, if somebody comes to you and says, we're going to give you $130 million. You forget about phone calling. Send the paper. My ink is there.
send it.
Everything like that. So, where do you think? First of all, what do you think of Harden? And second question, Houston made a lot. They spend a lot of money, and they still have room to spend. Houston
Yeah.
needs when with this roster, from what I see right now, they win 10 more games. They don't win. They don't get up to even 500. They get from
No.
20 to 30.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Houston's there, like he's not going to get you over the hump. And at the end of the day, if Harden goes back to Houston, it's because he misses Houston. It's not because you know what I mean? Like he's not trying to win a title there. It's because he misses the city. And I mean, I know I won't get into all the extracurriculars and the strip clubs and all that, but at the same time, he misses the ambiance of that city. He misses the nightlife of that city. That's why he wants back there. It's like, I got a theory in basketball. When the veteran moves to LA,
It's the
don't
finishing
ex-
career.
don't expect don't expect greatness every time. Don't expect great, because sometimes it's because they want to relax by the pool. You know what I mean? It just is. And I think in the case of Harden, if he's not trying to win a title, what's he doing? I've also heard whispers of maybe going to LA, maybe to the Clippers. I think that would be a really, really crazy fit. I would like to see him, Westbrook, Kawhi, and Paul George together. I mean, that's like a all-star team from 5 years ago, but now it's an island of misfit superstars.
Again, it's and what are they gonna do? And let's face it. We talked about the Lakers, but LeBron James closing in on 40. Okay, 22 years or whatever in the
Yeah.
NBA. Okay, he's an anomaly that he still can play up to where he is. He's getting a little bit tired. He's getting a little bit injured, but
Yeah.
LeBron James in any team, he's still the best player. Okay, when you have a guy like LeBron James, because the beard, James Harden was a good player, was the best player on the team. Now in any team, I don't think he's the number one player. And when the mentality of a number one, I'm gonna give me the ball, and he had to pass the ball with Philadelphia because Embiid was the best player and all
Mhm.
that. And now in Houston, they bring Brooks and Van Fleet. Let's say they bring James Harden back there. Okay, so is he the scorer? Is he the distributor? Or is he a bench player?
Yeah, you got to kind of assume he's the best player when he gets there. He's better than Van Vliet even right now, I would say.
Yeah.
But I would assume the ball gets pretty sticky between the two of them. The only time that it really worked with Harden was when Chris Paul was in Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, that actually worked.
Because Chris
But
Paul doesn't want to shoot.
right,
Chris Paul is a
exactly.
distributor. And Fred VanVleet here, the last couple of years, he was forced to shoot.
Hmm.
He had 7 assists this year, 7.2 assists this year, and he's passing the ball, but he was forced to shoot. There's some games, me and Drew talked about it all the time here on Jump Ball and Ballin', that why is he shooting this shot? Well, he's getting 40 points. The point guard, unless you're the number one player, does not need to get 40 points a game. Needs to get 15, 15 assists,
Yeah.
8 rebounds, and that's your traditional point guard for the NBA. Because when you look at, you got OG, you got Scotty Barnes, you got Pascal. Pass the ball, Pirtle. You pass the ball to them, let them get the 20 points. You get 10, 15 rebound or 10, 15 assists and 15 points. You don't need to get 40 points. So he had the tendency to lace up the shot there. And when you have Harden, and I know Brooks doesn't have a lot of points or whatever, but
Mm.
it's if they do sign Harden, it's a nostalgia tour in Houston. Put it that way.
Yep, exactly. A nostalgia tour is a good way to put it.
Nostalgia tour in Houston, and let's face it, it's not like Houston will win 60 games, 50 games,
No,
40 games. I'm going down, like I said, 30. So, what nostalgia is it?
right. That's what I mean. Like he's there because he misses Houston. If he goes, okay, that's what he wants. He just wants to live in Houston. That's what because he's not trying to win a championship. If he goes there, I believe he was trying to win a championship with Philadelphia. I would believe that even if he went to the Clippers. I don't believe that if he goes to Houston.
All right,
Not if they can't get good enough into the window he has left in order to get there.
I think the window has already closed, but
I'm trying to be nice.
what does that say? It's like, but is there any other team that you want to touch? I'm surprised Phoenix didn't do anything yet, big
Oh,
or
they don't have any money. They
no,
don't
they
have any.
don't have any, but they also have the team already set, right?
They
So,
do. They do.
and,
I was surprised that Phoenix didn't move Aiton. I'll say
yeah,
that.
that's what I was trying to get at because
Yeah.
and I with Pirtle here, Aiden would be good for Raptors,
Yeah.
right? But with Pirtle here, I think they're not going to trade him to Raptors.
Yeah. Well, and if I could float a perfect fit in a dream scenario,
I know what you're going to say.
do you? What am I going to say?
Your team, well, not your, but Detroit.
No, it's not. No, it's not Detroit.
Okay, go.
The dream scenario to me is the Knicks because Mitchell Robinson is the exact
Yeah,
type of center that the Phoenix Suns need,
yeah,
and DeAndre Ayton is the exact type of center that I believe the Knicks need.
yeah.
They
But
need somebody who can score more and still provide a punch on the defense. And really, I think the Suns need somebody who can shut up and provide defense.
I think first of all, that's 100% you're right. But I also like in your team because who's your team's, and I say your team, but you know what I mean.
I know what you
Detroit,
mean.
Detroit. Who's the coach of Detroit there? So did they have a little bit of heat in that when he wasn't the coach, or did they actually were good and there was other people? Because if you look at Detroit, he's pretty much Detroit's an up and coming team,
Mhm.
but who's their center?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jalen Duren a lot, but he's still real raw. I mean, like he's
Yeah,
got room. He's got room to grow. He could get a lot better. But he's shown flashes. For me, the Pistons, it's a tough decision. But what's going on with Cade Cunningham? That's my question.
that was my
What
next question.
what's going on with Cade Cunningham? Did you see how he looked coming back into
Yeah,
camp this year? I
yeah,
mean, he looked like Delonte West. Okay, let me just
yeah.
say that. If I could draw a comparison, he
Well,
looked like
I could say he looked like me, but whatever. So that's and again, uh, the mentality, and I don't want to equate it to hockey here, but I'm going to equate it to hockey. When I just did a hockey show, now these guys, you hear it all the time. They're in shape during the off season. When they come, they're ready and everything like that. NBA, they take the off season and they gorge, and then
yep.
they go and preseason and okay, they go at 110%.
Yep.
I don't know if that's right or wrong mentality, but that's now the mentality.
I think you hit the nose on the head, and I think too when you see different, when you can tell the difference when you see guys like and this is going to be obvious, but Kobe Bryant, he never
Yeah,
stopped working. Tim Duncan never stopped working. Michael Jordan never stopped working. Vince Carter never stopped working. There are guys that that I probably are farther in the deeper recesses of my brain that I can't access right now that never stopped working. You can tell the difference. LeBron James never stopped working. Anthony Davis did. He took a summer off. He takes every summer off. LeBron doesn't. Can you tell the difference? Davis is 30 and breaking down. LeBron's 40 and just now starting to break down.
but again, when you talk about the superstars, there's the mentality. There's only one LeBron James. There was only one Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Like you look at Barkley, and Barkley was good.
Even
And
Shaq.
yeah, but Shaq was again an anomaly because who can you just throw him and that's I don't want to go into your opinion on the number one pick,
I won't. I won't.
but no, but the whole thing is you're right because this guy has to put on weight
Has
for
to.
him to be. his longevity in the NBA. He can't. I don't know what he is now. What, 7'5", 7'6", 195. He
Yeah,
has to be 7'5", 245, 250,
yeah.
and he stays here another 10, 15, 20 years, and he has a career like Robinson and Duncan and all that. Right now, he's an egg.
Yeah, and I know I've said it, but like my main, and I just as concise as I can put it, there have been a handful of players in the NBA and NBA history over 7'3". A handful. None of them have had a complete NBA career. Zero. And all of them have been thicker and stronger than Victor Wembanyama. Every single one. All of them.
Again, it's just, I'm not saying he's a bad player.
I'm not either.
When Woj says, and everybody thinks Woj, okay? When Woj said this guy's not only the best prospect, but the best prospect in sports ever.
In the
Are you
history of
telling me
team
this guy's
sports.
better than LeBron, Michael Jordan, and every?
Well, and the other thing I never bought is that the hype, and I could give you, I could posit a brief theory after this, but the other thing I never bought into is that the hype was bigger for him than anyone else. I disagree. This happens every other year. I swear. The hype for Zion was just as big. What do they tell you about Zion? You know, he's the next. Imagine Charles Barkley with a bigger vertical. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, all the stuff they said about Zion. I mean, he's going to be the best player since LeBron James. Blah 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 blah. All the stuff they said about Karl Anthony Towns. He's gonna be the best stretch five you've ever seen before. This guy, Karl Anthony Towns, is an okay player. You know what I mean? It's nothing to write home about. Taco Fall was supposed to take the NBA by storm with his size, ball handling, and shooting ability. Taco Fall can't find a roster to stay on. Okay, you know, this happens a lot, frankly, and you know, not to mention Luka Doncic was the MVP of a more difficult league overseas at a younger age and shot the shot to win the game. And I believe I remember a lot more hype around him.
Yeah,
I just do. So is what
again,
it is. And my theory is that you look around, and I'll, you know, whatever. I won't take too much time with this, but you look around. The college product is not what it once was. March Madness is not as entertaining as it once was. Okay,
watered down,
nobody's
and like everything, it's watered down.
it's watered down. All these one and dones, and then you got the small schools with the 4-year guys that are winning over the one and dones because they've been together forever and blah blah blah. And then nobody's watching the G League. Don't convince me people are watching the G League. No, they're not. No, they're not. And nobody's watching the Euro League. No, they're not. You know how I know? Because they're not watching NBA regular season, so they're not watching G League regular season. Come on. So they're not watching any of these guys. The NBA has to create hype around the draft somehow. Has to. So what do?
Look, in
Here's
every
a
draft,
YouTube highlight reel that we can throw out there as red meat to all the media, and he's a YouTube highlight sensation. Here you go. You're gonna eat it up, and they did.
yeah, but in every, we just came off the NHL draft. Again, it's NBA, NHL, but
Yeah,
in every draft, there's five, top five players.
five.
You're picking 30 players, 32 players, and you're going in NHL. You're going 7 rounds, in NBA 2 rounds, right? 60 players, in NHL 250, in NFL 250, right?
Mm,
Yes, you're gonna find a Tom Brady once in a lifetime. Okay, in the 7th round,
right.
or an NHL, Nick
Well,
Lidstrom or whatever, right?
yeah.
You're gonna find once in 10 years. Yeah, okay, great. But the in NBA, how many second rounders play in the NBA consistently?
I'm very few. I mean, Nikola Jokic obviously the best second rounder, like maybe ever. Kawhi Leonard, I believe, was also a second round pick. So those are your
Yeah,
two, you know, nuggets right there. Those like your diamonds in the rough, like you talked about, and they happen. But I agree. I'll take it one step further. I think there's generally a superstar once every 5 years in the NBA. Once every 5 years, there's a real superstar. I think too many people get called a superstar. And once every 5 years is a superstar. Once every 12 to 13 years, there's an X Factor
yeah,
superstar.
yeah,
And then per draft, you have 4 to 5 impact players. And when I say impact, I mean guys that can make anywhere between 3 and 8 All-Star games in their
yeah,
career,
yeah. I
if I
agree
can
with that.
define it.
So, okay, we'll close out NBA jump ball with that. Now, I'll get to NFL. One question about NFL, because
Yeah.
Alex, I know. Listen, I spoke to Goodell. Okay,
All
he was
right.
telling me to stop using you on the Fired Up Network. There's a
Oh,
probe going on here because you're gambling. You're gambling a lot. So, can you confirm or deny that you put a lot of shekels on the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl?
I did not.
So you're never going to be on the Fired Up Network again. See, Roger Goodell, there you go. But what is this? They're suspending guys for betting on
Yeah,
not their games and all that. Like, there's gambling now in every sport.
yeah,
There's gambling now, whether you bet NFL, whether you bet arena football, it's there. So
yeah.
what's the problem that the NFL has if you don't gamble on your team? What's the problem?
Yeah, I don't get it. This we're in the real early days of these players getting suspended, and I got to imagine the NFLPA is gonna want a lot harder to look at these rules because like they're overly stringent, and they're not the players that got in trouble aren't necessarily in trouble for betting just in general. They're in trouble for betting while at the team facility
Yeah,
on other sports.
yeah, but
I
like
what does that matter?
exactly, and it's camaraderie because you're there. I'm sitting with you. We're Fired Up Network. We're hey Alex, what do you think the Maple Leafs are going to
Yeah,
beat the Detroit Red Wings tonight or what? Come on,
listen,
no, I love Detroit. Like, come on.
yeah, exactly. In my history of podcasting of sportscasting, okay, it's pretty brief, but I was on a small college football podcast last season. I went 39-4 against the spread. It was a ridiculous year. It was
All right,
mostly luck.
well, you're doing another show, by the way. Okay, so
I appreciate that. Yeah, I will. Okay, but my point is this. Okay, is it was mostly luck. But you better believe that the guys I worked with on that podcast were pulling out their phones when we made those picks and betting after about week 6 on what I said, because you can call it whatever you want to call it. You call it insider trading. I don't care. It wasn't. It's not like I had inside information from the teams. It's just that like that's the beauty of a cell phone. Do I need to explain this? Like, it's the beauty of a cell phone is you can do this from anywhere. You know what I mean? So when you get good information, like you're talked about, we talk about this stuff freely, and it's like your athletes, you can't talk about it while you're at the team facility. You can't, bet on the team facility. I don't get like, and I think like in the case of the Lions wide receivers, I read that they were betting on something ridiculous, like WNBA games or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. I mean, come on.
And
What are
how
we
do I
doing
know
here?
that they're not that the players are not betting on wrestling? Something like if you're a football player, you're betting on hockey. What's the problem? You're
I
even
don't
at the facility. Okay,
exactly.
my cousin plays for the National Hockey League. Okay, so he gave me inside information. Yeah, okay, so what?
It
Who
is what it is.
cares?
Yeah, exactly. And my thing is this, like, I have no problem with the NFL monitoring closely what
Yeah,
these players bet on. I think they should. I really do. They should be given whatever technological access they need to get that.
but they suspended him for 6 games, 8 games a year. Like one game, fine.
Right.
Eh,
It's a brand new rule. Slap on the wrist. This is not Pete Rose. Okay. You're not making an example here. That's not how it's not. And by the way, the guys you punished, you're not making an example of. Nobody cares about these guys.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams was like the best one, basically, but you know what? He's caught all of 2 balls in the NFL so far. So
All right. Is there anything else in the sporting world before we close it out that you want to touch on?
what you're saying earlier, just real quick, what you were saying earlier about the late round gift. I've heard a lot of grumblings about the 49ers and what are they going to do with Trey Lance? What are they going to do with Trey Lance? Sit him on the bench. I don't know. I don't know what all this is about. Sit him on the bench until there's somebody comes calling. And there's no market, by the way, because if Shanahan doesn't know what to do with him, nobody will. That's why there's no market. Here's the thing. You drafted Brock Purdy, and I don't know how many people know this about NFL contracts, but the later they're taken, the cheaper those rookie contracts are. So when you get a starting quarterback that goes fucking 7-0, you know what I mean? And you drafted him in the 7th round. Okay, you got a value there, a big value that you can afford to take on a first round quarterback and eat that deal until it expires. I don't think they're worried about it. They got the best roster in the NFL, and they got, arguably the best late, not even arguably the best late round quarterback pick since Tom Brady.
And speaking about Tom Brady here, there's rumors, and I can, you know which I'm laughing at it because now he's sort of part owner of the Vegas Raiders, and
Yeah.
Vegas Raiders now Garoppolo is a question that he may not play, so they need a quarterback. Is Tom Brady retired or not retired? If he comes back, oh my gosh, the soap opera is like Young and Restless here. Like, and honestly, I'm gonna say this. If it wasn't for Tom Brady retiring and non-retiring and retiring, then there would be no question. But can you tell me 1,000% that that Tom Brady will not be if he's owning the Raiders and they need a quarterback.
No, no, I can't. No, I think that's totally plausible, and that's what's crazy about it. It's it reminds me of Brett Favre. You know what I mean? With the
Exactly.
retiring and unretiring, Favre didn't have the business acumen and to do what Brady's done, and what he did wasn't as successful. He won what, 2 Super Bowls, not 6, or 7, and so Tom's much more successful in his own financial life, and so he's able to take part ownership and things like that. So, but you better believe if let's say Brett Favre was as successful and had that money, I mean, yeah, he'd do the same thing. I mean, 42 years old, he'd probably come back onto the field if they needed him. You know what I mean? Or even whispered that they wanted him to. He's back, and Brady loves football. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that a marriage broke up to a supermodel over wanting to play one more season.
No, no.
I, for one,
Let me
don't think that was what it was, but
let
go
me.
on.
Giselle made the call once she broke up to the president of the provinces of Canada. I asked her what's her criteria, and she did not satisfy what I'd like to hear. All right, that's why she's looking around for more stuff, and she was looking around in Vegas. That's why. Oh, she's looking around Vegas. I'm going to own the Vegas Raiders. That's it. But all joking aside, we'll close it off. One more
Yeah.
NFL thing. DeAndre Hopkins.
Hmm.
Now, like this guy's taking a tour of the entire NFL, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's this, whether it's that, and the other Delvin Cook, Miami gives him a deal, but he hasn't signed yet.
Yeah.
And his brother is begging him to come to Buffalo. So, but if his brother's begging him to come to Buffalo, he's taking his brother's job. So, like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then when it first started about Hopkins, Buffalo, it's going to be Buffalo for sure. They have the inside with Buffalo and everything like that. Now it looks like Buffalo's out, and is everybody playing out Buffalo here?
I mean, I don't think so. Buffalo's. I mean, they're still one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. I mean, they look pretty good, and I don't think they have a. They don't have a need for Dalvin Cook. I think a lot of teams don't have a need for Dalvin Cook. You know, I understand. Okay, let me give you a stat. 8 of the last 10 Super Bowl champions did not have a 1,000-yard rusher on the roster. 8 of the last 10.
Listen, the guy who's going to rush 1,000 yards for Buffalo is the guy who's on the cover of Madden. Put it that way. Period. End of story. That's Josh Allen. That's the guy. What did he do? 800 yards. Okay,
Yeah.
last year. So if it's going to be, I thought he's the only guy. Maybe Lamar Jackson also. He could rush for 1,000 yards. He could throw for 5,000. He could have 40 to 50 TDs. I don't know if anybody did that in the National Football League as a quarterback.
I think the Bills, and I agree. He's a monster. I mean, he can just run over people, run by people. He's ridiculous, and he's got a cannon for an arm. I ultimately think that the Bills go as far as Josh Allen's, not his arm or his legs take him, but his mind. Here's the thing. Brady had a very similar circumstance to Allen for a long time. A defensive head coach, and he was an amazing quarterback. Allen's an amazing quarterback, and he's got a defensive head coach. What worked in New England is, Brady, you're pretty much the offensive coordinator. You work on the game plan with the OC, and you can call plays out there if you need to. You guys bounce that. But here's the thing. I'm staying out of it. So far, that hasn't been the case in Buffalo, and I don't think they'll win until he gets hands off and lets Allen and the OC work independently.
Well, hopefully that changes by September. Put it that way. For me, I love Buffalo, but your team in Detroit is, making noise, and it's good to see because Buffalo, Detroit, secretly, if we don't have a team here in Toronto, but if you're a fan, you probably like Buffalo. You like Detroit because it's close by. Buffalo, Detroit. You like Pittsburgh and other Miami because Marino and all that, right? So, but Detroit for the first time, I guess in 30 years since Barry Sanders and all that something you could see they're the favorites in the
Yeah.
in the Central there, and they gotta if they have a home playoff game they could go to the NFC, champion. I'm not going to say they win, but winning in that. And speak about the coach, he doesn't get a lot of
No.
notoriety because he's, yeah, we're gonna smash him, he talks big, but he got the job done last year because they started off slow and then they won and they played that Thanksgiving game and they gave Buffalo trouble. Buffalo won at the end, but Detroit
Yeah.
has very big shoes this year. A lot of people are kind of say they're going to win the Central, and if they get a home playoff game, watch out.
Yeah, if they get a home playoff game and they win the division, I mean, I think then they're totally capable of winning the North. I saw a really interesting question on Twitter earlier, and it was, is Jared Goff the best quarterback in the NFC? And that question at first seems like, oh no, he's not. Think about it for a second.
No,
If if
he's up
he's
there.
just compare him and Jalen Hurts, okay? Because other than that, there aren't a lot of that ilk. There aren't a lot that are even close. So if you just look at those two, I
What do you
I
mean, Brock Purdy? You're not going to say, you know what?
I'm gonna need more than 7 games. Okay.
But no, that's a very valid question there
Yeah, but
because
that's it though. Like, and I don't mean to interrupt, but that's it. Like, we're how as far as Goff goes is as far as the Lions will go, especially with Jameson Williams being out the first 6 games. That receiving core, I felt like they needed to add another receiver.
what about Hopkins there?
I would like to see Hopkins there. I would. I think it's one of the only places where it makes a lot of sense, honestly, because you've got another receiver who's already a number one, and he's not going to be asked to be the number one. I think he'll break down if that's the case. I know he doesn't like to practice a whole lot. I think that's a pretty big issue with Hopkins. And with the Detroit, you don't need a guy who really has to worry about taking the top off the defense. You kind of already have that in a few other players. And so you just need a really good, sturdy possession receiver, and Hopkins fits the bill. But they're one of the only and I think a team like Buffalo, another perfect example. He's not going to be the number one receiver there if he goes. Diggs still would be, obviously. He doesn't have to be worried about taking the top off the defense and beat a safety
I don't
deep.
know if Diggs is going to be there. Like,
Well, yeah, if you believe the tea leaves, and we'll see. Diggs will make it known that he won't beat around the bush. We know that from how he handled his out in Minnesota. Is that when he gets truly disgruntled, he will make it perfectly clear what his intentions are. He's not one of these guys who's gonna make you guess about it.
All right. So that we've talked about a little bit of hockey. We talked basketball. We talked football. Anything else that you want to touch on?
I don't have much, man. I'm gonna save all my college football stuff for later.
All right, and don't forget, college football starts about a month's time here. Since we're in July already, so it's like
So excited.
I know you're a college football guru there, but since it's Canada Day, do you have anything special planned for Independence Day, U.S. Independence Day?
Just classic, Independence Day celebration. We've got some family out here in Boston. We're gonna have a cookout. We got fireworks by the lake to go to. So just good old American fun. Burgers and hot dogs and beer.
It's fired up. He gets me fired up, Alex. He did the NHL Stanley Cup. He did the NBA Finals. He's dabbling in the Boston Red Sox. He went to a Red Sox game the other day, Thursday, I believe, Wednesday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Thursday.
I was, tell the fans who are listening and watching a game at Fenway Park. We talk about the Rogers Center and Rogers Center is great. It's a marvel and a roof and all that, but baseball is meant for. I talked with Roberts about this. Baseball is meant for the smell of the food, the peanuts, the hot dogs, and in Boston, in Chicago.
Sweet Caroline in the 7th inning stretch and all. Yeah, I mean, it's just that's it.
You're gonna sing that, Sweet Caroline, but go ahead, tell everybody what it's like to be in Boston, the atmosphere and everything like that, because that ballpark, what is it, 80, 70, 80 years old, right?
Oh, it's 100 and it was built in 1912, so it's 112 years old. 111, 112 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
It's insane. It's the oldest baseball park in North America. In the world, because North America is where baseball started. And so in the world, I'm lucky enough to have also seen a game at Wrigley, and at Oracle. And in my opinion, Oracle's not a historic park, but good Lord. It is a beautiful. Oracle is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But to talk about Fenway, it's magical. It just is. The ambiance. I just love old stadiums. Growing up as a Michigan fan and being in the big house as much as I was, you can just feel the history in those stadiums. You can just close your eyes and picture Ted Williams at bat. And you can close your eyes, and it's not just the Boston Red Sox that have played there. It's not just the 04, the 18, and all that. It's not just all those guys. You know what I mean? It's more than that. Babe Ruth played in that stadium. Ty Cobb played in that stadium. Hank Aaron played in that stadium. I mean, good God. Barry Bonds played in that stadium. Mark McGwire played in that stadium. You know what I mean? Like Sammy Sosa played there. That whole home run race had an impact there. You know what I mean? Like all of baseball history has gone through Fenway Park to some
Yeah.
degree, and
Yeah.
you feel it. You just feel it when you're there.
And take us through. Everybody knows about the one thing about Boston, the Green Monster there, and now they put seats over the Green Monster. And
Yeah.
everybody, if you ask anybody, where do they, they go in Fenway Park, we want to sit above the Green Monster because you're sitting, I don't know how high or whatever, but imagine the perspective. Maybe I should get you to go into Boston, sit in those seats.
I'll
I
do
don't
it.
know how much those seats are. Those seats are what, $5, $10, or
They're
whatever.
not much. Yeah, they're not much. Those are pretty much the
And what
cheap
can you
seats.
see from those seats?
Oh, it's a good view. It's you. I mean, you're in left field. You're in left field, looking towards home. It's not bad because you're kind of high up, so you got the eagle eye view kind of. It's 37 feet in the air, so it's not as high as you, but 37 feet compared to the average 5-6 foot fence is
Yeah,
a lot though, is a
yeah,
lot. So when you're talking about close to 300 feet to the outfield or to that wall, plus 37 feet in the air, that's what's so challenging about it. um you know and what's really cool about Fenway is that they still do the rankings updates, or if there's another live game, they'll do them analog style with a
yeah.
person behind the Green Monster changing it out. And there's just something about that just feels so right.
And now in the age of, dare I say it, what we're doing right now, streaming online TV worldwide, and hello to my fans in Sweden and Alex fans in Bangladesh and everything like that. But
Yeah,
like that's something, manual, doing the work and changing everything in the outfield there and all that. That's something we don't see, and nobody appreciates it. Like when we
yeah,
grow up, I know I'm a little bit older than you, but when you grow up, you grew up and like, oh my God, I'm going to a Yankee game, or I'm going to go to a Jays game, I'm going to go to a Red Sox game and all that.
yeah,
Oh, that's cool. Now everybody's on their phone. What's the stats here? And they got one phone, two phones, 50 phones, and we're 30 apps, and we're on Roku and everything like that. Now people need to take the time, and
yeah,
baseball's the best because some people actually, dare I say it, oh, baseball's so boring and golf is so boring. But take the time to appreciate it, the science, the sweet science of the game, like they say about boxing, the science of the
yeah.
game, pitching and then the rotations. Because even 5 years ago, we weren't talking about spin rates.
Well, no, and the other thing too is if you're watching, I mean, some of the performances are just insane. There were two. First of all, Shohei Ohtani. I'll just mention his
Yeah, but
name. And
the Yankee pitcher, a perfect game.
a perfect game by German, the first Dominican-born player to throw a perfect game in MLB history, only the 27th of all time, and he was the only player to ever do it, giving up more than 10 runs in the previous start. That to
Yeah.
me is the most remarkable stat of all of it. Then in this game on Thursday, two pitchers took no-nos into the sixth. The Red Sox pitcher Bayo took it all the way into the eighth. So it was a pitcher's duel. It was great, man. It was great. Afterwards, of course, I was there with a dear friend of mine who also happens to be an agent. So we go down to the clubhouse. We talked to a few of the players. That was awesome.
You're
Um,
negotiating a new deal for Fired Up Network or what?
I
You
wish.
have to be with an agent? Like, am I
I
going to
wish.
get. All right, and
I I was
I'm
down
going
there
to
right
ask
outside
you
the.
this.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Here,
ahead.
I'll ask you this. This is off topic, but going to a game with an agent, does he? And do you pick his brain? Does he see the game differently?
Well, my buddy who's an agent actually played in the minor leagues. I mean, so he's a former player himself. So yeah, he definitely sees the game differently. And yeah, so it was really cool to watch the game with him. Normally, just being as into all sports as I am, if I go to a baseball game, it's normally with family members, and I'm the one getting asked all the questions. I'm the one giving the information. It was a lot different, going with an actual, like you said, like an agent who actually played almost Major League Baseball and like knows what he's talking about.
It's again, you got to pick those brains because the guy sees it differently. Played it. He's an agent. It's talk about like Oakland Moneyball. All he thinks about is the money, right? So
Yeah,
money,
I'll tell you
Moneyball.
what one thing that kind of surprised me is that we go down to he's representing one player in the Marlins. Okay, so we go down to the clubhouse and we wait. I mean, probably half hour for this guy to come out. It's I won't name names because I don't know if I'm supposed to or not. It doesn't really matter.
No, don't name him.
Yeah, so he comes out or whatever. What I couldn't believe is that this player was like my size. I mean, he was 5'9", like not a huge guy. But I watched him play. He can absolutely fly. I mean, it's super super fast. So it just reminds me about professional athletes, and like people like to say like, oh, if I just worked harder. No, man, the gap is it's a valley
But
between.
it's the gap, but it's the heart. It's
Yeah,
also not many people that you talk about again. Oh, my mom and dad used to drive me here to go to these games and all that. It's the heart that the
yeah.
person has when they struggle, when they up there, and you talk about in football it's they got
Well,
a span of 3-4 years. Baseball, hockey, everything you got maybe 10, 15 years, right? So
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you say that. I know I don't want to take too much time, but like recently, there's a wide receiver, Noah Brown, who was interviewed and asked to compare Dak Prescott because he played with him in Dallas in Dak's early days, and C.J. Stroud, who he's on the Texans now, and he's caught passes from C.J. Stroud, and he said something like Stroud is basically more talented and has the ability to be better than Dak, really. And people are kind of outraged by that. I mean, duh. Okay, Dak was a 5-star recruit and went to a premier program. Or sorry, C.J. Stroud was. Dak was a 3-star recruit and went to a mid-level program basically, and had a terrible offensive line. He got sacked 55 times in 1 year. He basically, dragged that team to a bowl game a few years in a row. Dragged them to a 10-win season in his senior year. And you look at C.J. Stroud, he's got nothing but 5 stars in front of him. He's got nothing but NFL wide receiving cores. He's got nothing but favored in every
yeah, but
single game he plays.
we mentioned it before. Sorry, cut you off, but we mentioned before with Purdy. Doesn't matter if you're average in the
Well,
sixth round. It matters what you see, how your
yeah.
brain functions, and how much heart you have.
Well, that was what I was getting to, is that ultimately what matters is your road to get there. Quarterback is such a unique position because it's not just about who's more talented. It's not. I mean, Ryan Leaf was really talented. Jamarcus Russell was really talented. And that's not what it's all about. It's more about your headspace. It's kind of like golf in that way. It's more about your headspace, your mental game. Can you manipulate the defense with your eyes? Can you read defense with your mind? Can you make the right audible at the line? And can you have moxie when the game gets tough? I'll tell you what. I don't love Dak Prescott. But as far as the intangibles and moxie, that guy's got it in gobs, and I'm not sure about Stroud.
And like I told you, it's again the heart, the vision. You talk about the vision, and does he have the mindset, the correct mindset? When you hear, and we mentioned the drafts here, we're running around in circles here, but we mentioned the mindset. Does he come from a great family? Does he mindset and all that? Because you got 2 seconds in NFL. You got 2 seconds to see the field,
Yeah,
to see the entire field, and you got monsters coming at you, want to kill you, and you got to be accurate and precise and throw the long ball and throw the short ball and put it in there right here in the chest and everything like that. So it's the span you could have in college. Again, you're the best guy. Guy could throw 50,000 yards, but in the NFL, he throws 6 interceptions. He's done.
yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Tebow is the best out of that.
There's only been a handful of guys that I can remember who have been a quarterback in the NFL, and who I believe have done it mostly on physical talent and not on that mental acuity and toughness. And I would put the guys like Michael Vick into that, where I mean, just relied completely on athleticism. I'm not saying he wasn't a great, quarterback. I'm not saying, he didn't have a great arm. He had a fantastic arm, super strong arm.
Wags also.
Yeah, I mean, he just had everything, but he was just so physically dominant, and that was kind of his thing. Cam Newton early in his career, very similar, so physically, just in a different way. Just kind of like the difference between LeBron and Jordan. One's more finesse, one's more power, but very similar. Um, and kind of in that way, just relied on their athleticism. But that is so rare, and ultimately, they got to the same spot, almost there,
Yeah,
almost there, not quite.
almost there, but almost. You talk about that almost like the Bills should have been 4 times. Never mind. All right, so fired up, Alex. Go ahead, tell everybody what you're up to. What's your next column about? Your social media and everything like that.
Awesome. Yeah. So social media, Twitter, I'm at Fired Up, Instagram or at Fired Up Alex, Instagram at Fired Up Alex as well. I run the crossover series here of articles about basketball on the Fired Up Network. I'm also doing, like you saw, Joe said, a little bit of baseball, focused on the Red Sox. We're going to follow, most of the rest of their season game by game, talk about what they want to do at the deadline. So my next few articles are probably going to be focused mostly on that. And I've also got a couple previews for the college football season coming out soon too. And I'm really excited about college football coming out hopefully in the next couple weeks here. Because like you said, I just absolutely, that's really my wheelhouse. I absolutely love college football.
By the way, the Red Sox spoil Canada Day at the Rogers Center, beating the Blue Jays 7-6.
Saw that.
7-6. So the Red Sox win first two games against the Blue Jays, and hopefully the Blue Jays can salvage one game tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
Or
important.
and every game now is very important, even though we're not even halfway through because the All-Star game. But with Tampa not losing and Baltimore still getting up there, and now Boston's 500, and nobody can believe Boston 500 there also. So again,
it's a 2-game swing. So it's so if they get a 3-game series, it's a 6-game swing basically.
Yeah. So that's. But I'm going on the limb and say the Blue Jays win tomorrow. All right.
All right.
And again, happy Canada Day to everybody who's watching it in Canada or listening to us, and in the United States. Happy early Independence Day. And the Blue Jays are in Chicago to play the White Sox on Independence Day also. So
yay.
Be interesting. And again, Alex will be back here periodically. Drew Ebanks is catching up on some drinking for Canada Day and everything like that. But stay tuned for more great programming here on the Fired Up Network. Thank you.